Motorola's 2019 Moto G series has officially been announced, and competition in this mid-range market has only ramped up since the 2018 G line. The Moto G7 Play, G7 Power, and G7 sell for $199, $249, and $299 respectively, offering reliable, mid-range devices that have matured with updated designs, bigger batteries, dual cameras, and more. The G7 Plus, packing the highest spec camera of the four newly announced phones, won't be sold in the US, but consumers will still have plenty of variety even without it. The latest G series takes Moto's signature rounded look and spruces things up with some modern design elements. These 19x9 displays feature rounder corners and the ever-popular notch cutout. While the G7 Power and G7 Play sport the more prevalent U-shaped notches, Moto's opted for a more teardrop-shaped notch on the G7, one of the first things you'll notice that separates the G7 from the other two. Flipping them around, you'll find plastic on the Power and Play, while the regular G7 is constructed of Gorilla Glass all the way around. This comes in either ceramic black or clear white, which easily sets itself apart from the two lower-end G devices. The G7 Power still has a nice, shiny, fingerprint-prone back with a shimmery marine blue color though, making it look more like the regular G7 than the G7 Play does with its black or blue textured plastic back. On the inside, we're looking at Snapdragon 632s across the board, but RAM comes in either 2, 3, or 4 GB for the Play, Power, and regular G7 respectively. Thankfully, the Power and Play don't dip below 32 GB for storage, while the regular G7 comes with 64 GB. Of course, all of which are expandable via microSD card up to an additional 512 GB. Although the regular G7 has more memory and storage, the G7 Power sets itself apart with a massive 5000 mAh battery compared to the 3000 mAh juice packs found in its siblings. Still, the G7 Power and regular G7 both leverage Motorola's turbo power technology to charge at 15 watts, which the company says can get these handsets 9 hours of use from only 15 minutes of charging. The G7 Play lacks such turbocharged capabilities, but we're very pleased to find USB-C charging across all three of these Motos. The G7s will ship with Android 9 Pie and Motorola's minimalist take on Android, which features two main additions, Moto Display and Moto Actions. These are still useful complementary bits of software that make accessing info from the lock screen easier or activate functions like turning on the flashlight or opening the camera with the flick of a wrist, but nothing new has been added here. As expected, you'll find the highest end camera specs in the G7, with its dual 12-megapixel camera setup. But the Power and Play have high megapixel sensors of their own, albeit single shooters, at 12 and 13 megapixels respectively. All three have 8-megapixel front facers, and all three have features to take portrait shots with bokeh application, black and white spot color photos, and GIF-like creations with select areas of movement called cinemagraphs. Exclusive to the regular G7 are two new features though: high-res zoom and a feature called hyperlapse video. The former uses multiple frame captures to increase zoom quality, while the latter records time-lapse video with increased stabilization to encourage walking around while recording. The regular G7 can also record up to 4K and 30 frames per second, whereas the Play and Power top out at 1080p 30 frames per second. Unlocked and carrier versions of these latest G series devices will all release in spring, so finding models compatible with the US carriers won't be hard. Unlocked versions will be available at Best Buy, Amazon.com, B&H Photo, and Walmart, while the G7 will also release with Google Fi. Carrier versions of the G7 Power will release on Verizon, T-Mobile, Metro by T-Mobile, Cricket Wireless, Consumer Cellular, and more. Lastly, the G7 Play will be sold with Boost Mobile, Virgin Mobile, and US Cellular. In the world of the proliferating $1,000 smartphones, it's always nice to be reminded that great experiences can still be had at reasonable prices. The G series has always executed well, setting itself apart with unique looks and reliable performance, so we're optimistic that these incremental upgrades will help the G series hold its own in this jam-packed price range. I'm Corey Gaskin with PhoneArena, thanks for watching, and be sure to check out PhoneArena.com for our upcoming reviews on these devices and many more.